Hello and welcome back to another episode of Abby the Podcast Lady. I am super excited. Podmatch has been hooking me up with some really cool guests, and today is no exception. We are hanging out with my new friend, DM. Hi, thank you so much for joining us.
I'm glad to be here. It is 9 a.m., so if I trip over my words, folks, just know that I'm not a morning person. But I'm here. I'm super caffeinated. So this is going to be great or an alternative to great.
You know what? We can edit everything out. That's the beauty of podcasting, is I have the ability to edit. So we hooked up on Podmatch. A pitch to me was, I'm like, this sounds like a really good conversation that I can have with someone who's doing podcasting a little bit differently. And our conversation before we started recording today started with the fact that you've been working in the internet space and been kind of a digital nomad for 20 years now. So I'd love a little bit of background on who you are and what kind of your experience is in that space.
So I did the digital thing. The world was still analog. It was 2001, 2002. I started a company in I guess you'd call it my home area. I've lived in a lot of places in my life, but in, the place where most of my childhood was. And when I started this company with another guy, I came up with the product and wrote the scripting and the processes and put everybody in place. But I'm not a day-to-day guy always, because I am more of a leader motivator. So I can lead groups of people. But when it comes to like that granular management where you're sitting down with reports and blah, 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 that's just not something I enjoy. So my partner ran the day-to-day, but we still needed somebody to kind of like keep looking at everything, looking at the books, looking at the margins, looking at the people, the production, products, all that fun stuff. And so I was like, well, I don't need to be here every day to do this. At the time I was married to somebody, I was young. I got married at 19. This is my early, I guess I'm 24, 25 now. So I've been married a few years, but I was like, I don't have to be here. Why don't I just like sign off for a residual percentage, kind of oversee the company, and then I'll kind of travel. So we did a lot of that. We traveled across the US. And then I built a house over in Romania where my ex-wife was from, and we lived over there. So when I got over there, I was like, well, I got to run, the business. Otherwise, this just isn't going to work. So at the time, it was $100 a minute to call the US from there. And so, yeah, very expensive. It was still like, you like picked up the phone in Romania and you were like, hello, operator, please put me in touch with number 44782. It was crazy. It was like stepping back into the 20s in my mind. The other 20s, not the ones we're in, the ones that are way before all of us, folks.
Last 20s.
The last 20s. And so in the 1900s, as they like to say now, I found this calling card. It was $3.75 a minute. So I would call my clients. I would call my team. I would, look at stuff on the internet. But I don't know if you've ever had to use a calling card, Abby. You're probably not. Okay. So, you got to dial like a long number, and then you got to dial like 16 digits, and then you got to dial the access code, and then you dial the number. The problem with it takes like 3 minutes to dial one number, but the second you miss one number, you got to start over.
So you're back to the very beginning.
Yes. So I'm managing this company on calling cards and dial up from Romania. And, it worked for a few years and it was fun. And then the rest of my career, I've done everything from, having a little company with just like 2 Filipino VAs and a writer, and I flipped newspaper space for good margins just to have something to do and make money while I did other things, to now, I've had the bigger journeys of taking a few companies from like less than $1 million to like $3 to $5 million within 1 to 2 to 3 years. So now I build my life this way. Like I've been digital. I don't even really like to consider opportunities if I'm in a place where I don't want to create one. I don't really consider anything that doesn't give me freedom, because to me, freedom is the best benefit you can get from a job. If a job ties you down, it does not give you freedom. It anchors you to one space, to one place, to one experience over and over and over. And I'm just not about that life. So does that answer your question? I think I covered 4 questions there, but digital, nomad, 20 years, correct. There you go.
Very much like a kindred spirit. I feel the same way. Like I literally just had a nightmare last night that my friend made me go to school to be an X-ray tech. I'm like, but I don't want to be an X-ray tech. I don't want to work at the same place every day. Don't make me do it.
Yeah. I know that feeling. I did do corporate for about 4 years when my kids were teenagers. It was fine for me because I could work 2 hours a day and I was in the top 1% of salespeople, and upper like VP, C-level, they loved me. As a big company. But I tell you what, I fought so much with middle management Because they were like, it's not the point that you're number one or number two in the whole company. It's the point that you work 2 hours and walk around for 6 and chat with people. And I'm like, but this is how I am successful. I have freedom. I need to feel it. So yeah, they don't understand that. I've had that corporate versus entrepreneur mindset conversation quite a few times.
It's a challenging one. I have the same one. So how does podcasting tie into all this? Where did podcasting come into play on your journey?
So in 2019, I started a passion project I lived in Austin at the time. That's kind of my home base from the US. Two of my older children live there. And then that's where my company's based out of. I started this podcast and it was more just like me wanting to, I'll just be honest with you. I was like, man, there's a lot of really cool people here and I'm just kind of in my own world. How can I get in that world? And then I was like, well, if I'm going to start a podcast, like I can't start it out of my garage with a couple of beers on an old couch with me and 2 buddies. Like I need to do something real. So I hired a couple of I hired a production, couple camera guys. I had 3 cameras, 3 or 4. I had 2 sound guys. I had, I don't know what they call them, but like a gopher person, a manager, a co-host that I paid a salary to. I spent about $150,000 on 60 episodes in 3 months just to contextualize it. But what I learned, and with no monetization strategy whatsoever, by the way, because my big thing was always no sponsors, no comps, because I was one of the first foodie influencers in Austin.
Ooh, and what a market to be a foodie influencer.
Oh yeah, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 into 19, it was a fun time. But around about 19 is when the influencer culture changed. And it went from, I'm an influencer, oh, great, can you stop by, to I'm an influencer, no, I'm not giving you food, and stop asking for it because I've had 5 people threaten to give me a bad review as an influencer, and I don't want nothing to do with you people. And so I started just putting out there, no sponsors, no comps. That was like my whole tagline to everybody. So I kind of had a brand to uphold. And I was fortunate. I already had another business where I was, working with attorneys doing SEO and websites and stuff. So I start the podcast and it goes well. We don't light the world on fire, but we've got a few episodes with, several thousand hits. Most have several hundred. And I end up having people like Ali Khan. He did like Cheap Eats on the Food Network. I ended up having some people that were, if you know who Gary Clark Jr. is, he's like a Grammy-winning guitarist out of Austin. I had a couple of people on his record label on my show. So, we were definitely like climbing up the social charts there. I ended up stepping away because I just got too intense about it while having another business and it was taking off. And so I kind of thought, man, this was a waste. And 6 months later, I started having people contacting me. Well, actually, as the pandemic started ending, because obviously then we went into the pandemic. So a lot of stuff ended. So people didn't ask much. But then when the pandemic ended, was ending, I started having people contact me when I was coming back into town. I had moved out of town. They'd say, hey, I want to meet with you. I'm like, okay. And they'd be like, hey, we're opening our own podcast studio. One guy was like, we're doing one for BIPOC people. You've been really supportive of our cause and thanks for it. But man, I just want to show you what you inspired in this community. And I had a couple people show me, and they all basically the premise was, we learned that we need to stop waiting around for the Austin Chronicle and the Austin whatever, and, the news outlets. We just started making our own content at a high level. They started building podcast studios and empowering people and doing all this stuff. And listen, I'm not saying I'm the godfather of podcasting in Austin, because everybody knows that's not true. But what I will say is that I feel as if I've had the privilege to inspire a few key people that are now inspiring other people. So I kind of took that, and my walk away was production value made the difference, because there was no less than 25 podcasts in Austin trying to get the same people on. But yet I had a wait list and they had a hope list. It was one of those things where, knowing that, then I still have my other business. My partner and I, we separate. He exercises his buyout option. Now we're 5 months away from my wedding. We're almost 2 years on the island, or a year on the island. So it's not like I can just be like, I'll just go get another job. But I have a notebook. And while I was working with attorneys, one of the questions I would get consistently was, do you guys help with podcasting? And my partner didn't want to help with it. He wanted to build an answering service. So I was like, okay. Mm-hmm. But when it came time for me to kind of, okay, what do I want to do next? I was like, well, I like working with attorneys. I really like this podcasting thing. And I really think I can build it in a way where it benefits professionals. Because podcasting doesn't have to be, so what'd you do this weekend, man? Yeah, cool, man. Like, oh, and then, shock jock kind of stuff and all that. There is a way to podcast in a professional way that benefits the professional and benefits the public. And so I started structuring that. We soft launched December of 23. We fully launched May of 24. It was just me and my VA. Then it was me, my VA, and a guy who had worked for me in Pakistan for a few years that I didn't really know him, but I knew of his work and he knew me through the work. And then May 1st, we started. And now here we are a year, 19 months from that start point. We've got a little around 200 clients. We've got about 60 people on the team across 12 countries. And we pretty much yes, we market, but we don't take people from who the heck are you to, okay, fine. We now take them from, I want to know more, or how do I do this, or how can I get involved? And then we bring them on. So it's been a great journey so far.
That's amazing. I love hearing stories of people podcasting in unique ways, finding those unique markets that aren't just the bros on the couch in the garage. It's the professionals that are looking to elevate their messaging and really hone into their specific audiences. And I think that it's so cool that you're doing this, and you're doing it at such a large scale in honestly a short amount of time.
Why do it if you're not going to do it fast and right? I said this once. I was just like, listen, I would rather be the heavyweight champion of the world than beat up a kid in the parking lot. Like, I'm an all-in kind of person. I think what they asked me was, what do you say to somebody with a side hustle? And I said, stop believing in side hustles. It's either your thing or it's not.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of like, that's my mind frame is, we're doing this, let's go. And honestly, I've held back growth. I sold the first 100 clients, developed the sales process, developed the product, listened to the clients, changed the product, relaunched the product in November. So basically 6 months of the first launch product. And then when we relaunched in November or late November, early December as LPN 2.0, then I had a sales guy that took over in January of this year. And since then, I've stepped back and all I do is podcast, vision cast, kind of work on the company. But I've held back growth. I could have 5 full-time salespeople, 15 setters. I could just work on the marketing systems and we could probably sell 100 people a month. Wow. With the amount of traffic that we've created just from dipping our toes into different things.
That is absolutely incredible. Congratulations on all the success with it. It is just astounding. I'm amazed by it and inspired by it. So I just think it's so dang cool. It's so cool.
I never count anything as success until I cross the finish line, but I do appreciate your cheering me on.
Oh, I'm cheering. I got the posters up. I got the noisemakers cheering as loud as I can. So this is kind of a unique way to monetize the podcasting industry. And you had mentioned that you have 5 ways to monetize when it comes to podcasting, which I always get the question of, well, how do I make money off this? And it's usually the first question people ask me. So let's dig into that. Give me some tips and tricks for people.
Let's start with the 2 traditional ways that we think of when monetizing podcasts. First of all, your CPM grab, right? So you get money from YouTube for so many views, from Apple for so many views. CPM is like what they pay you per million. Some it's per 1,000, but usually it's per million nowadays. So there's that traditional route. And I work with attorneys. So let's think about this for an attorney. Let's say they're getting 2 million views a month, which how on earth we would get an attorney show to have 2 million views a month is beyond me. But let's just pretend in the perfect world, we're getting 2 million views a month. So from this 2 million views a month, the attorney's going to get, give or take, $1,500 per million from YouTube, right? It's kind of a give or take. So let's say they get 2 million on YouTube and 2 on each format. So they're going to get roughly $1,500 per million from YouTube, depending on the demographic. It could be up to $6K, but generally I've seen about $1,500. So they're going to get $3,000 from YouTube. Then they're going to maybe get a couple thousand from Apple, 1,000 or 2 from, not much from Spotify. Just like Snoop Dogg said he had 4 billion views and made 40K or something like that. I think that was last year or something. So yeah, if you're doing this for Spotify money, good luck. But let's say all in, you're getting 10K a month, but you're an attorney, right? So you're getting 2 million views. You're making $120,000 a year on this podcasting business. So that's number one. Number two, you could do sponsorships. Kind of the same thought. It's just different ways, a little bit harder to get the money because it's not more passive. You got to go get the people, sign the contracts, put them in your show, blah, blah, blah. But let's say you can get your show up to 10K a month with that. So those are the 2 that most people think of. But as a professional, there's really, and this is what I see as the key, is understanding that podcasting can do way more than that. Number 3, and the one that I think is great for professionals, is using it as a networking tool. You are building a podcast to build relationships with people who will send you clients. So again, I'll use the injury attorney. That same injury attorney, let's pretend we've got 5 injury attorneys. So the first one's getting $10K a month because he is getting money from, the outlets. The second one's getting $10K a month because he's getting sponsorship dollars. The third one says, you know what, $10K a month, my firm needs to make $5 million a year. What is that going to do for me? So they decide to launch Injury in Atlanta, and they interview chiropractors, and they interview physical therapists, and they interview insurance adjusters, and they build relationships with these people who then will refer them business. Because most people, if you say to them, and this is changing a little, but it's only going to filter out this being so easy, but if you're doing it right, it'll be okay. But if you say to somebody, hey, Mr. So-and-so, I got a great thing I want to present to you. You want to go for coffee? They're going to be like, oh, you know what? Check with my receptionist. I might have something on the 2nd of February, but double check that because that might not even be available, right? But if you say to them, hey, I'm doing this podcast on injury in our market, and I've seen you in the marketplace. I hear your impact. I think people would really want to hear from you. They're going to come, they're going to show up, and you can build that relationship. So you've got that way. Then you've also got, you can build relationships, referral relationships, or you can interview your clients directly. Now, some people don't like this. And this is kind of showing up where people are like, did you know people will ask you to be on their podcast? And then when the podcast is done shooting, they'll pitch you their product. And it's really just a sales strategy. I'm seeing it show up on LinkedIn. So be careful. If you're going to use this strategy, be super smart and add a ton of value. Even if you pitch them, they better get more than just a pitch from you. Let me just say that. But you can do that. And I know people that sell this system. I know people that do well with this system. It's probably not going to work for more than another year or two, but it'll still work unless you're doing it, like I said, right. Then the last one is what I call an authority podcast. And this is what we focus on. Not saying I invented it, not saying I came up with it. I probably saw it somewhere. But in my mind, I thought of it, this is how I want it to work. So it's probably a conglomeration of other brilliant people. And I just put it in a blender, poured it out, and said, here's a smoothie, right? So what we focus on is we start with the archetype of the client of our clients. So you're an injury attorney, right? Yes. Now, do you want everything soft tissue, slip and falls, dog bites, stuff that's going to maybe get you low 5 figures? Or are you holding out for like bone breakage, major things, 7-figure, 8, 9-figure sort of settlement stuff? In other words, are you only hitting grand slams or are you hitting base hits all the time? What is your strategy? And if they say to me, well, I really want like catastrophic injury and brain injury, or catastrophic injury, brain injury, wrongful death. I want the 8, 9-figure cases. Like that's what I want. Then what we're going to do is we're going to create a content plan that's going to create about a 20-minute podcast that answers 7 to 10 questions for a very specific person in a very specific time with a very specific need and a very specific hurt. So this session today, your loved one just came out of, is in the hospital with a brain injury from something that happened. What do you do next? And they answer 7 questions. Now that thing might only get 30 views, but of those 30 views, 5 of them call you and 3 of them hire you and you make $400 million. You tell me, which would you rather have? A $120,000 a year podcast that brings you $10,000 a month, or a $4 million a year client acquisition system that builds trust and authority before they ever walk in your door? Because that's the other thing, in my opinion, about authority podcasting, is it's very good for commoditized industries like legal, like insurance, like real estate, any sort of professional. They're knowledge professionals. And the thing that sets them apart is what they know. But yet, how do we gauge them? A website that says, I know what you need to know, just call me. Yeah, the problem is every other attorney, every other real estate, every other mortgage says the exact same thing. But when I'm introduced to an attorney so now that service is commoditized if I do it that way. But if I'm introduced because they assuaged my fears, They answered my questions. They gave me clarity in a time of turmoil, frustration, and fear. Who do you think is going to win my business?
You just got to super serve those people that you're going after. And people don't realize that that is a way to profit off of their podcast. They haven't been exposed to this level of thinking, and they think the only way is to get the ads and to get the thousands of downloads a month and get those. But this is such a better way because you're super serving your community. You're establishing yourself as the expert. That's what this is meant to do. And I love that you're focusing on that and you're building a business around it. I think it's so cool.
Yeah, we're super excited with it. I mean, we started with legal, and that's been my niche, but I've been really like white collar my whole career, with legal kind of being my specialty. And so we're getting ready to launch the Authority Podcast Network and the Expert Podcast Network. The Authority is for people who want to be positioned kind of internationally with their business. The Expert are people who want to be positioned locally. So I'm your local real estate expert. I'm your local criminal defense attorney expert. So we're kind of creating that differentiation. And the reason why we're doing it, we get 3 to 5 people a week who reach out to us and say, I'm not a lawyer, but I don't know anybody else doing what you're doing. How do I work with you? And we don't get as many of them as we'd like, because we feel like we're kind of putting a square peg in a round hole. And we're honest with them. We're like, I mean, we can put you into our ecosystem, because like what I focus on is not podcasting. It's not marketing. It's creating an ecosystem that is self-contained. So we do podcasting. We do all the social media for our clients. One podcast creates a month's worth of content. We do website content. We've got these streaming TV channels that are launching next month, LPN Life, which is attorney content for attorneys, and then LPN Answers, which is for people who need attorneys. We are also launching a podcast matching service. Actually, Alex, I'm basically white gloving over top his service until he creates a white label situation. But I'm white gloving for some of my clients and starting to make this available, where we're going to do guest matching and show matching within an ecosystem in a very tailored way, to be like, all right, here are 3 people that fit exactly what you want for this episode. You can interview all of them, or you could just tell me one of them to book. What do you want to do with it? So we're trying to create this whole ecosystem where you just come in and this and this and this, and it all feeds off of going into that 1 30-minute podcast, whether it's weekly, twice a month, or 4 times a month is up to you.
This is the kind of stuff that I could nerd out about all day long. Absolutely love it. I love seeing people do things differently. And it all starts with the core of it being a podcast. Like, this is what lights a fire in my belly.
Me too. You know, my wife said to me about 2 weeks ago, she's like, it's not fair how much you love what you do, right? You're not supposed to love what you do. I got that at Christmas
this year.
Yeah, you know, it's like, it's not my fault. Like, I just sought my passion. And along the way, I learned that I had different passions that I even knew that I had. You know, if I did my passion of what I wanted when I was 18, my life would look very different. But as I've evolved and learned and grown and learned more about myself and more about people that I feel like I get along with, then it's propelled me into more and more of a vision for what I wanted my life to be and what I want to do to empower that life to exist to be. Because to me, how you make your money is just one aspect of who you are. It's like, what brand of toothpaste do you use? It's like, it really doesn't matter who are you outside of how you make your money is important to me, unless you make your money by doing the thing that you really are. And some of us are lucky enough to do that, right, Abby?
Yes, incredibly blessed. And I am so upset that we're kind of on a time crunch today for recording this. It's full disclosure, it is literally the last day of 2025 as we're doing this. I wanted to talk about your podcast that you are coming out with. We were chit-chatting about it before we started recording, and I think it's just a fascinating concept. So I would love to hear all about your new show that you have coming out that you're hosting.
I am hosting. It is a faceless podcast. So, you know, that means if I'm traveling, like I love to do, I can do it from anywhere as long as I've got enough internet signal to get a good audio up. But it is called Building Authority Through Media. That's our staid sort of approach, but it's actually, we call it BAM. And it is a 90s Saturday morning cartoon style superhero narrative podcast with legal marketing experts. And if that sentence has ever been put together in history, I would love to see it. But what we do is we basically take this journey. Our first 4 episodes are journey through the land of LinkedIn. And we have 4 LinkedIn right now, mostly focused on legal, but this can really apply to any professional. We have 4 LinkedIn influencers, experts, consultants, whatever you want to call them. And each episode, we take 2 monsters on LinkedIn, clout posting, fear of posting, a bad bio, getting tired of the content exhaustion. And we just kind of battle those as like monsters. And we go through, we have like a theme song. It's animated with AI. I have 2 on the team that do AI automations and all of that. We got a theme song. We're excited about it. On January 13th, we're actually doing a live premiere event where we're going to premiere the event. Then we're going to do a panel. We're trying to treat it like a movie premiere. So I hope you join us, Abby. It's going to be at like noon Central Time on January 13th, if that's a Tuesday. We are doing like a premiere of it. And then afterwards, so then we'll do a panel with the episode that we premiere, myself, probably my producer, and then the young man who did the AI for it. So we'll do a panel. And then after that, we're going to take a few minutes. We're going to announce what we're calling LPN Eco, which is, so we started with the Legal Podcast Network, which then became LPN 2.0. That's when we 10x'd our content delivery. We went from 3 pieces per episode to 30. Now we're launching LPN Eco for ecosystem. And that's when we're going to launch the television, the streaming TV networks. We're going to launch the podcast matching service, and we're rolling that all into one. And what I do is with my clients, when they signed up, if we only gave them 3 pieces of content, and when we raised the price and revamped and went up to the next thing, I kept them at their same price and gave them the new product. Then same price, new product. So it's been a crazy month. I thought it'd be kind of slow, but we just been sending out a couple emails. Hey guys, this is what we're going to add in January, and this is how much it's going to cost. This is how much it costs now. And so usually in January, I kind of hoped we'd bring on maybe 10 clients. We just signed our 25th client this month. So yeah, so we're super excited about it. I feel like this time next year, I'm priming my team. I believe in my heart we'll be somewhere around 500 clients. That's my goal. But yeah, that's the podcast. And what I'm looking forward to doing now is just podcast guesting, vision casting, and then podcast creation, where I'm just trying to show what I believe is the future of podcasting, which is great content, which is what podcasting has been founded on, with great production value, which is what podcasting is going to, with entertainment value, which is where I think podcasting needs to go and eventually will go. Every media outlet has that same arc. Look at radio, look at TV, look at YouTube. It starts here. Content is enough. And then it's got to be polished content. And then it's got to be polished, entertaining content. So that's where we're going. And I'm just trying to kind of lead that charge in the professional space.
I absolutely love it. I think that's a beautiful place to wrap this conversation up. I am so excited to follow along with everything that you're doing. I have a couple of quick wrap-up questions here. The first one is, what is a podcast that you have been listening to lately that you've really been liking that isn't one of your own?
Well, not my own. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. No, I love The Office Ladies. That's my favorite podcast. Huge Office fan. And to listen to Jenna Fisher and it's mornings, I can't remember, Angela Kinsey, really give you that inside scoop. And they have guys from the sandwich cart that, and people I love that show, because then I'll do my rewatches, because, with The Office, it's not, do you watch The Office? Or, have you watched The Office? It's, do you watch The Office? It's always present tense. So yes, I watch The Office on a continual loop throughout my life. Dinner Party's my favorite episode. I've probably seen it countless times.
Oh, I cringed so hard at that one.
But that's what's great about it, So The Office Ladies, that's my favorite. I love it.
I love that they're also they got through all the episodes and then they're but we're not stopping. So let's just do it all over again.
Yeah, they're second helping or something, I think they call it. I love it.
Second drink, is that what it is? Something like that?
I'll go look at it. But yes, second drink, second helping, something like that.
Great show, though. Fabulous. And then the last question I have is, if people want to get in touch with you, if they want to follow along on all the crazy stuff that you're doing, where's the best place for them to find you online?
For me personally, LinkedIn has been my digital language and my playground lately. So, I post there. I pay attention to my inbox. Outside of my personal socials, which if we're not directly connected it's probably best to approach me on LinkedIn. And then for my business and what we're doing and how we do it, thelegalpodcastnetwork.com. We'll even put stuff down at the bottom for our other networks so you can find, the streaming networks and then the new podcast networks that we've got coming out. So yeah, I mean, those are the best places with our website. We have tons of testimonials. Listen, when you have something in your head and heart that will work, that drives you for a while. But when you start hearing that it is working and people love it and they're making money and they're growing their business because of it, that's when you just I get out of bed every morning around 5:30 and I wake up and I can't remember the last time I went, another day. I literally wake up and be like, all right, let's go. It's time. So that's how you can reach me. With LinkedIn, again, I post on there. I try to tell funny stories that I hope relate to business somehow, show pictures of my life, me, my dog, me on the island, me with my wife, just be a real person, because I think that that's where social networking on the business side is going.
I love that. I will be sure to connect with you on LinkedIn because I can't wait to see, especially your dog. Show me all the dog pictures. But
we call her Kiwi the Talent Hound.
Oh my gosh. What kind of dog is Kiwi?
So she is a Whippet Beagle. So you can call her a Wiggle or a Bigot, but she prefers Wiggle.
I am so excited to see your dog. DM, this has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today. And I'm excited to see everything that you got coming up and launching so shortly.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. And I hope your listeners enjoyed it, and connect with me as well, folks. I'm the same guy when you talk to me on LinkedIn as you listen to me here on. I mean, it's easy to podcast when all you do is just be yourself.
It's very true.